Hello, I'm Fast Lawyer. Today we're going to review Human Within VR, a cinematic interactive experience released on the Steam store April 3rd, 2025 by developers Signal Space Lab and Act Trio Studio. The game normally retails for $19.99. I did buy this game and I tested it out on the Meta Quest 3 using link cable, as well as PlayStation VR 2, where I found out that PlayStation VR controllers do not work. So don't buy this game if you're on PlayStation VR 2 PC. This game slash cinematic experience takes less than 2 hours to complete, although you'll probably want to do a second playthrough to see some of those alternative scenes. There are 4 different endings. However, the game is not very friendly as far as doing a second or third or fourth playthrough, because when you select a scene, it'll actually save from that point on. However, if you start near the end in a second playthrough with the select a scene, you'll be able to view most of it without losing your save progress up to that point. The problem is that you cannot skip through any of the content, and while some of the alternative scenes are very different, the core story though remains the same. So while I would describe this as a choices matter FMV type game, except for the different endings, the choices are more like flavors to the story, and you'll still go through the same core of the story each time. So unfortunately, it does end up feeling like your choices really don't matter, not in any real meaningful way, excluding the ending. And unfortunately, I do think that was my main problem with the game. On my first playthrough, I did what I thought was a good playthrough. In other words, I always made decisions in favor of my close loved one. And I guess at this point I do have to give out some spoilers, but I'll try to keep this as vague as possible. I really don't want to do any spoilers for the story. I really don't want to get into details of the story, so I'll try to keep it with what the store page description says about it. Anyways, the main protagonist of the story is Chief Engineer Nyla and her sister Lynn, who have developed a way to harness the immense processing power of the human brain to create the ultimate supercomputer. Now there's hacking that goes along, you're trapped with your sister, and you have to figure out a way to use this technology to get out of the situation. And as the story goes along, you have situations where you can choose to back up your sister or try to push along this technology. Now I always thought the choices were pretty clear cut, and I always backed my sister. And while I did end up getting the, I think, good ending by doing it this way, it seemed like every time I made this choice, something happened which took away the impact of my choice. It's like while I did have agency, I really did not have agency over the decisions. Something always happened that took away the decision that I made. So I felt pigeonholed into a predetermined outcome. Anyways, I hope I didn't spoil the story for you guys, but I did want to convey that although this is a choices matter, that for me on my first playthrough, it really didn't feel that way. And I hope I explained it clearly enough that you guys understand why I feel that way without giving away too many spoilers. Now, as I mentioned, this is a mostly cinematic experience, and this experience is a mix of 2D and 3D camera work along with some gameplay elements. Now, the main story is told through 360 stereoscopic 3D point of view. You cannot move during these scenes. You can turn around in real life, but there is no artificial turning, and there's also no interactivity during these moments. The game will then change to monoscopic 2D screens that are laid out in 3D environments. And lastly, you will have gameplay moments which are rendering from the game engine. These consist of puzzle elements to the game. One of them is a simple match a cube with the symbols together, and the other is find the correct scan in a 3D environment while manipulating time. Now, I wasn't a big fan of these puzzles, but at least they went along with the story. And I also was not the biggest fan of the story. I feel it was constrained by the choices matter restriction, where the story could only go a certain number of ways, and yet they had to have 4 different endings, so the endings felt kind of abrupt, and the choices felt sort of artificial in order to get these 4 different endings. And while I'm not going to say this is the best acting I've seen in VR, I also think the actors did fine given the restrictions they had. Doing a 360 video production is always going to be very difficult. It's basically the same issues you'll have doing live theater. You have one cut and you have lots of moving moving parts, and the camera is not going to do you any favors, and your audience could be looking any number of ways while you're trying to act. There were also some production issues, like there was very poor lighting in many scenes. The audio mix was not particularly well done in this experience, and honestly the video resolution needed to be much higher to be a pleasant experience on PC VR. The amateur production values here really brought down the entire experience for me. So unfortunately, if I have to rate this experience, I would give it a 6 out of 10. While I did enjoy some elements of this experience, such as being able to see all the different screens in a 3D environment and pull them closer to you, that just wasn't enough innovation here. Anyways, that's my review for Human Within. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. And as always, have a wonderful day and enjoy the rest of the video.
None of this is important. This device needs to be destroyed, not pursued further.
You're ignoring its full potential.
I don't give a shit about its full potential. All I care about is Lynn. Which is clearly something you never did.
Anything you need to tell yourself to make it work.
Can't you see how dangerous this thing is? The device is nowhere near functional, you know that.
It's nothing but a minor setback, but you know what I think? I think you're holding out on me. Yes, it's a risk. But if you want to move forward, you have to take it. But your theory that prolonged exposure always causes irreversible brain damage...
It's not a theory. It's a fact. Holding me and my sister hostage isn't going to change anything.
Well, facts can be changed. It's called improvement. I'm sure you'll figure something out. And now before you go and do something stupid with that tool you're holding, will you do the right thing and hand it over to me?